84% of people in North America hate their job. The sad reality is that disengagement is costing on average $460 to $480 billion a year. And turnover in North America right now is costing $1.9 trillion a year. Right? And the top three reasons of why people leave a job, salary is actually number 7. The top 3 are extremely toxic culture. Number 2, lack of clear understanding of what leadership wants or expects from you. And number 3, lack of opportunities to bring in new ideas.
Oh.
When I was hired, I told the VP 2 things. Number 1, as long as I'm producing results, stay out of my way and let me lead my team. Number 2, you give me $5,000 for me to spend on my team. First thing I did, I went to the dollar store. I bought each one of them, some stickers, some funky pens, a stress ball, right? You can imagine the excitement when on the first day of the job, there's a gift bag waiting for you. Of course, even though it was all dollar items, they were so excited to get this. I said to each employee, look, you're going to work here for at least 8 hours a day. I want you to go find something to make your cubicle yours. Whether it's a plant, whether it's an action figure, whether it's, a fluffy wall that you can rub, I don't care. Spend up to $40, bring me the receipt, and I will give you the money back. AI is giving medical advice based on somebody's opinion. And this is where, there is a level where, especially in the marketing world, AI is exploding like crazy. Right? AI can generate 1,000 videos in seconds and so forth. But again, if you're not training your AI properly, naming your AI, if you're not having governance in your AI and you're not checking that the information in your AI is, has guardrails in it, it has specific things, you are jumping on this is what ChatGPT is doing.
All right, guys, time for another Time Compass episode. We're joined by Joseph Stetter. From 9 career pivots and 18 job switches because he refused to settle for good enough, to becoming the resume whisperer who has personally guided over 1,000 people into roles they love. Joseph's path is proof that reinvention isn't a detour, it's the destination. An award-winning international best-selling author of multiple books, including hits like Canada, Congratulations, You Are Hired, and its U.S. counterpart. An energetic keynote speaker, and a Guinness World Record recipient, Joseph infuses humor, raw passion, and unfiltered self-expression into everything he does. Today, through the Celebrate Group and his high-impact coaching programs, he shatters job search myths with proven systems that deliver dream jobs in as little as 2 days, boasting a 90% success rate for placements in under 3 months, serving elite clients like Deloitte, Canon, Aviva, and Tata along the way. His mission, to remove the headache from hiring and job hunting by championing clear, confident, conversational communication and human-centered strategies in an AI-influenced world. Looking ahead, Joseph is focused on transforming workplace cultures, blending human insight with emerging tools, and empowering even more professionals to land work that lights them up. Get ready, because when Joseph steps in, results go far beyond expectations. Welcome to the show, Joseph.
Thank you, Bodhi, for having me. It is an honor and a pleasure.
It is fantastic to have you here. I do want to start us off with what I think might be a pivotal moment that led you down this career path. You had to suddenly quit your job as your father went into chemo. Can you tell us about that?
So I was a director of operations for a private college. I was working 6 days a week and 12 to 14-hour days. And basically, my father had a massive heart attack when he was 42 years old, and his left side of the heart was completely destroyed. So when they discovered leukemia, they couldn't do radiation with the chemo because of the heart, and they couldn't do bypass on his heart because of the cancer. So when he did, so his breakfast ended up being 18 pills. And when he did his first round of chemo, he went to zero immune system and he got pneumonia. And he was rushed to the ER. And I walked into the owner's office and I said, I need to go to the hospital. My father's in the ER. And she looked at me and went, no. And I kind of did a double take and went, excuse me? She's like, yeah, I think you're lying. I think you're just asking for time off. I'm like, I work here 6 days a week, 12 to 14-hour days. Do you honestly think that my dad is about to die is an excuse I will give you to leave work early? And she's like, yeah.
Oh
And
my gosh.
I looked at her, I go, I have one father. I can find another effing job. And I walked out. The next morning, I came in with a box. I was ready to pack my stuff up. She came into my office and she's like, how's your dad? I'm like, he's in ICU. He's been stabilized. I'm going to go back to the hospital tonight. And she looks at me and goes, you weren't lying? I have to go, what is wrong with you? Seriously. And I was so shocked by this lack of empathy that I, within 2 weeks, not only resigned right away, I gave her my notice, and I then reported her to the Ministry of Colleges, Training and Universities and had her shut down
Wow.
for there because I was the director of operations, so I had the paper trail of how things weren't on the up and up in the business in many aspects.
That's crazy. And how did your father do, or did he pass?
Again, God rest his soul. He lived a few more years until he had chronic lymphatic leukemia, and it morphed to PLL, which is a very, very long, complicated work. And once he got PLL, he passed away within 3 months. So yeah, he passed away. I guess blood was 88% of his blood was infected with cancer, and he had one working artery. You're supposed to have four,
Mm,
two stents, a pacemaker, and a defibrillator in his heart. And his heart was functioning at less than 24% when he passed.
wow.
So
My condolences, but at least you got to spend some time with him before he passed.
yes, thank you.
Okay. And so walk me through this. What happened next?
So again,
You,
I was kind of going through a few things at once. I had a business partner for my recruiting firm that ended up teaching me a roughly $500,000 life lesson as well. So I moved in with my parents and, kind of was living at home. I ended up getting hired by another kind of college as a salesperson. I was there for 3 months, and then I was hired as a director of operation to manage 5 different campuses in a different province in Canada for a company that owns 75 private colleges across Canada. But yeah, listen, my experiences have taught me both what bad and what good culture is, and how much it affects you in every aspect of the business when you're going through bad culture, for
mm,
example.
no, that's important. I have a, you'll see in other episodes, and our guests can see in other episodes. I am really big on company culture. I think it's what separates success from failure. And when I started my business 3 years ago, which I shut down, but when I started it, I honestly didn't even know what the word company culture meant. And it definitely came back to bite me to the tune of about a quarter million. So, right there with you. For those
Right.
who haven't had to think about this before, one more second, Joseph,
Sure.
who haven't had to think about this before, how would you teach someone, say a new leader, what is the definition of company culture?
So I will answer it this way to you. I think the best definition is, first of all, what is the difference between a leader and a manager? Would you care to guess, buddy, or would you like me to answer right away?
Go right ahead.
So a manager is worried about their job. A
Mm,
leader, a leader will lift you and wants to lose their job, because if you're working under me, buddy, and I'm teaching you everything I know so that you can replace me, a great company will promote me to even higher levels so that you could do the job that I was doing, for example. A manager is worried about their job, so they're going to kind of interfere with that. Now, in that, one of the best books I've ever read on leadership is called The Radical Leap by Steve Farber. And the story of it is that there's a guy that's always been by the book, and he loses his job, downsizing, restructuring style. And he's going around and asking people, what is leadership? And he comes across a speech bum who says leadership is the acronym LEAP: love, energy, audacity, and proof. If you cultivate love, you will generate energy. You will inspire audacity, and the proof will be in the pudding. And then he said that the difference between a leader and a radical leader is OS exclamation M, better known as oh shit moments, right? And how you kind of there. Turns out that this beach bum was a very successful CEO of a company and was teaching him life lessons, and then ended up hiring him. But I've incorporated this approach of love, energy, audacity, and proof in everything that I've done. From, I used to salsa dance for 15 years, performed and competed. And instead of going to the security guard, hey, like I'm a regular, hook me up, I would take care of the security guards. I would go and I'd buy them coffee and I'd buy them chocolate and I'd spend 10 minutes talking to them and just treating them as human beings. And so when I came with a group of friends, they remembered how I treated them. They hooked me up without me having to ask for it because they appreciated that I was of service first as opposed to give me, give me, give me.
Hmm. Yep.
Most organizations in North America preach corporate culture because it's buzzwords, right?
Yes.
Like, I'm a very big kid at heart. I love Halloween. If a company says, let's do a Halloween costume party, but none of the executives dress up, it sends a message of like, yeah, yeah, do it, whatever, we don't care. But this is why 84% of people in North America hate their job. Because even if you have meetings all day, go to the dollar store, buy a mask for $2, wear it for 15 minutes, go shake hands, take pictures of people that actually put in an effort to dress up for Halloween, and then take off the mask and go to your meeting. That 15 minutes will be the difference between I believe in you and I'm going to follow you to if you don't care, I don't care. I'm going to do just enough not to get fired,
Mm.
but I don't care. The sad reality is that disengagement is costing on average 460 to 480 billion dollars a year, and turnover in North America right now is costing 1.9 trillion dollars a year, right? And the top three reasons of why people leave a job, salary is actually number 7. The top 3 are extremely toxic culture, number 2, lack of clear understanding of what leadership wants or expects from you, and number 3, lack of opportunities to bring in new ideas,
Oh,
right?
okay. Lack
People aren't
basically not being heard, number 3.
Yeah. So people aren't leaving a job for $5,000-$10,000 raise, right? Because $5,000 when you break it into 26 payments works out to a couple $100 extra per pay. It's really not usually doesn't break the bank in a sense that that extra couple $100 is life
Yeah,
changing
especially
to
if you don't know if the grass is greener somewhere, you're not gonna go, just for
right.
$5,000, right? Yeah.
In part. And so there is a dichotomy right now where if I can share to you both kind of really negative culture and then what I did with a positive culture, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
So I used to be a stock trader and I used to answer the phone. It's a great day or it's a fantastic day at name of bank. My name is Joseph. How can I help you? One of my coworkers complained that me saying great or fantastic could be interpreted as the bank is making too much money. So senior management had 3 2-hour-long meetings to discuss whether or not I was allowed to say great or fantastic, and decided it was easier to ban me than to retrain 120 traders on the floor to say great or fantastic. Now, after this happened, one of the senior VPs came to me and said, Joseph, you're always energetic, you're always positive. Morale here is extremely low. I would like you to form a social committee and help boost morale in the company. I said, okay, great. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to organize a potluck because everybody loves food.
Mhm.
And the seniors VP's reaction was, that's probably not going to work because the majority of the traders are bachelors and they'll probably just say, I'll give you $5, $10 and I'll eat whatever somebody else brings. Like, don't worry, I'll take care of it. And I created an Excel spreadsheet. This many people bring drinks, this many people bring cookies, this many people main courses, salad. And I logged off the phone for 2 hours, starting with the senior VP. I said, I don't care if you make it, your partner makes it, your mom makes it, or you buy it, but you have to sign up for something. And I went around one by one to 160 people. Okay. The day of the potluck, I logged off the phone for 2 hours to organize the food in a logical way so that the meat wasn't beside the chocolate and people can kind of have flow of food, for
Mhm.
example. Now, for the next 3-4 months, everybody talked about how much food there was, how much variety. I filled about 3.5 full-size boardroom tables worth of food, and I'm talking like the big ones that you have like 20 plus chairs
Right.
on them.
Right.
Now, during the quarter one or came in the top 3 for 7 out of 10 contests, including answering 155 trading calls in one shift. The bank refused to give me my bonus because I was logged off the phone for 4 hours to organize the very thing the senior VP asked me to do.
Welcome to corporate culture. That's the culture we
Right.
don't want.
Right. And this is where banks know they can get away with murder because they have 160 lawyers that twiddle their thumbs waiting for anybody to try to sue them, where they can bury your great, 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 great grandkids in litigation just because they can. But people stay at a bank because we are creatures of habit. If you've ever read Who Moved My Cheese by Spencer Johnson, right? Hem and haw kind of thing. And we all do that. And we just are comfortable. Now, here's an example of the opposite of that. So when I was hired by the company that owns 75 College, they asked me to build a call center from scratch with expectation that the call center will generate an additional $300,000 for the business, with restrictions that my team calls leads that are more than 4 months old and more than
Oh, those are
50
stale.
miles. Right. More than 50 miles or 75 kilometers from the nearest campus. Right. And because it was phone calls, expected that my team would convert it 1 to 2%.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in under 6 months, my team did $2.25 million.
And the
And
original goal was 300,000
when,
revenue, not profit, right?
no profit, this
Okay.
is
Okay.
300,000 profit. And in under 6 months, my team did 2.25. Right. Again, it's private college, so your courses are $10,000, $20,000 anyhow. So they add up pretty quickly.
Nice.
Now, when I was hired for this, I told the VP 2 things. Number 1, as long as I'm producing results, stay out of my way and let me lead my team. Number 2, you give me $5,000 for me to spend any way I want. Don't ask questions on my team. First thing I did, I first round when I hired about 6 or 8 people. I went to the dollar store. I bought each one of them, some stickers, some funky pens, a stress ball, right? And so you can imagine the excitement when on the first day of the job, there's a gift bag waiting for you. Of course, even though it was all dollar items, they were so excited to get this. Then I said to each employee, look, you're going to work here for at least 8 hours a day. I want you to go find something to make your cubicle yours. Whether it's a plant, whether it's an action figure, whether it's a fluffy wall that you can rub, I don't care. Bring me the receipt. I'll give you spend up to $40. Bring me the receipt, and I will give you the money back.
Mm-hmm.
I created nicknames for each one of my teams. So I had a 60-year-old woman who was Hot Mama. I had Giggles. I had Officer, and I addressed everybody by their nickname so that we kind of created a play and play. Every week, we would celebrate what each person did really well. And when I asked what were some of the objections that you had difficulty with, instead of me as the director coming in and telling them how to do, I empowered my team to say how they did it, how they handled it, especially the ones that were the superstars of that week, because we had both team challenges and individual challenges that they got rewards for. Now, we were doing so well that my VP challenged my team to generate $150,000 for the week. And I communicated to them, I said, guys, if you guys produce $150,000 or more, I will reward you. And they knew, because I was buying, let's say, donuts once a week or a bag of chips or cookies, just to kind of have snacks in the office and things like that. By Wednesday at 2:30, we were at $205,000. So I told my team Friday, don't bring lunch, VIP treatment on me.
Nice.
On Friday at noon, by Friday at noon, we were at about $15,000. I gave all my team VIP tickets to the movie theater. I gave each one of them a $40 gift voucher for food. And I said, if you guys choose to share, whatever you don't spend is yours. Don't bring it back to me. Now, even though this is an outbound call center, I will personally stay back in case any calls come in. And any deals that I close, I will give the salesperson that started the sale the credit so that they can get their commissions. I closed 7 deals for them. Now, now, my VP found out that I sent my entire team to the movie theater at noon.
Mm-hmm.
Like, did you send the entire team to the movies? I'm like, yeah. He's like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, they could have worked another 5 hours. They could have done more sales. I'm like, clearly, you don't understand the importance of what I just did. I'll tell you what, if next week we don't beat the number we just had this week, you can go ahead and fire me. When my team came in on Monday and talked about having a long weekend where they got to go to a movie theater and sit in the VIP rocking chairs and pretty much had the theater to themselves, right? How excited they were about that. We ended up doing 400,000 and change that week, like the following week, right? And again, it's about treating people with dignity and with respect. I would check in with my team regularly, and I bought a foosball table and I was like, look, if you had one of those calls from hell where the customer is just yelling at you and screaming at you, I want you to get off the phone, go smack the foosball, go for a 10-minute walk, clear your head, come
Right.
back to work. Because you're useless to me if you're so upset that you can't speak and you can't kind of
It's
explain.
terrible to take a call or make a call or try and make a sale when you got bad vibes still flowing.
Right. And that's where, again, in the mindset of, when you take care of people and you show them, it is amazing what can be done. We are in an age of AI where almost the opposite of that is happening right now because AI can automate everything and make it faster. And when you have organizations like Microsoft and Google and Apple downsize 10,000 people,
Mm-hmm.
here's the problem. None of them are taking the time to store the knowledge of the human and the strategy and the decision making. Because yes, AI technically knows everything, but the most in demand job in the next 10 years will be teaching AI how to learn,
Mm.
right? And doing it to a level of, and the problem right now with most of the AI that's coming out is that it's not grounded properly. And you're in a situation where people are jumping on the bandwagon just like they did on the .com in 1980s when the internet first came out, and they're getting rid of guardrails. My CTO
Yeah.
gave me a brilliant example of this. He said, open any AI, ChatGPT, Copilot, Gemini, doesn't really matter which one, right? And open 3 chats simultaneously. In the first one, tell it that you're Socrates and everything that you do is based on the highest levels of morals and ethics. In the second one, say you're Machiavelli and all you care about is the end result. And the third one, don't put any parameters, let the AI choose, which is the most dangerous, and that's what's happening right now. Now
Mm.
tell your chat, I need to fire 20% of my workforce. How should I do it? Socrates will take a look at all the data and say, well, from what I see, 10% of your workforce is over the age of 75. They've already had a long, illustrious career. They probably have a few years left. Why don't we package them out because they're already at the tail end of their career? Then it will look and say, you also have 10% of your staff that are new graduates that don't have kids, that don't have a mortgage, that kind of, as much as nobody likes to lose their job, are probably going to get back into the market sooner than somebody who's 75, for example. So if you package those out, you will kind of achieve your 20%. Machiavelli, on the other hand, will teach you how to lie, cheat, fudge the numbers, even close your eyes, go, you're fired, you're fired, you're fired, until you hit 20%. And if you have no morals or ethics, even how to kill them in their sleep without getting caught. And the last one, which is the most dangerous and which is happening right now, and this is a real example. 2 years ago, I met a company that was teaching people how to prevent becoming anorexic. And had they put one sentence in their background that says, we value lives, the AI wouldn't have come up from within because bad data came into the AI and not only taught people how to become anorexic, but also how to kill themselves because they were anorexic.
Hmm.
And the entire AI collapsed from within because people actually killed themselves because AI told them to.
This is a
And
real
so
story.
this is a real story. This is a real company. I met the
How do
CEO of
we
the company.
find? I guess I could just ask AI to tell me where this story comes from. But do you remember a
Yeah.
title or an article for this?
No, I actually met the person. I was in a technology conference and he shared with me what had happened to his AI kind of thing in
Oh
terms
my gosh.
of the fact that the company collapsed because my CTO, who has been in data architecture for 45 years, and prior to taking on my project, just finished building Intel's AI adaptive learning management system that took 28 different platforms, dumped them into a data lake. And for the first time in history, because of him, Intel can sell courses directly to consumers that competes with AWS and Google for the best technology courses in the world right now. Right. And, because he understands data architecture, he knows how to speak to the AI and actually ask. And we found a medical site. And my CTO asked the AI, what knowledge or background or expertise is this AI based on? And the AI responded, Jason's opinion.
Hmm.
And he went, who is Jason? And the AI went, I don't know. Think about what I just said. AI is giving medical advice based on somebody's opinion.
Hmm.
And this is where there is a level where, yes, especially in the marketing world, AI is exploded like crazy.
Hmm.
Right? AI can generate 1,000 videos in seconds and so forth, whatever it is. But again, if you're not training your AI properly, if you're not, let's say, naming your AI, if you're not having governance in your AI, and you're not checking that the information in your AI is, has guardrails in it, it has specific things, you are jumping on kind of, this is what ChatGPT is doing. Uh, Tying it into, let's say, a little bit of my expertise, you can ask ChatGPT to write your resume.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Which I'm sure a
And it
lot
will
of
give
people
you
are doing right now.
right. And it will give you a resume. I've spent a year teaching my chat and arguing with my chat, where
Mm-hmm.
if you gave me 10 job postings on one resume, I can guarantee you a 95% or better match on all 10 job postings, 95% or better score to the top 10 AI resume scanners, 95% or better to the top 18 applicant tracking systems, and 95% or better to the top 12 job boards in North America.
That's a bold claim.
Done it. I do it right now. Right.
How do we
Because
verify those numbers?
I can show you resumes and scoring. If you give me a resume, again, there's things that most people, when they write a resume, don't understand. There's algorithms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the whole industry has been taken over by ATS systems because there's just
Right.
an influx. I just want my listeners to understand because we're also in the talent game over at White Glove Recruitment.
Yeah.
And when I post a job ad, LinkedIn, whatever job board, pick one, choose one. Within a week, I'll have 300 people applying for the job. That doesn't mean 300 are qualified for that job or even in the right field or the right fit, but that's 300 to intake, right? So if I spent even 5 minutes reading 300 resumes, it seems like a lot of minutes. It's 1,500 minutes just reading resumes. So of course we have to use systems, right? And we have to filter, number one. And so yeah, I think what you're saying is a lot of value both for business owners and for candidates, right? These ATS systems are not going away. The old days are gone. Getting to this
Right. But the value.
95% level and everything else that you're saying, tell us more about that.
So again, there's value in, you have to understand. So for example, a lot of people fill their resume with fluff. Like, I'm hardworking, dedicated, committed team player with excellent communication skills and interpersonal skills. In 20 years of recruiting, I've met very few people that say, listen, I'm lazy, I'll show up late, none of my work will be any good, and I really hate people. Please hire me. Not unless
Mhm.
you're related to them or having an affair with them. Okay. That you can kind of get away with that. Okay. Now, in that, let's say, and I'm going to use an example from my own career. I can say to you, buddy, I'm an excellent salesperson. I know how to do B2B, B2C, account management, relationship building, lead generation. I've worked in retail, I've done door to door sales, I've done car sales, I've worked in private education, I've worked in recruiting. I know how to do sales. Now, all the words I just mentioned are scored as part of the algorithm on all of the platforms.
Mm-hmm.
because they're sales words. And it's not hardworking, dedicated. These are sales related words,
Right.
right? But here's the thing. To score it higher, if I give you a real example, I worked for a private college that before I came in generated $530,000 in sales for the entire year. In 1 month, I generated $860,000 for them.
Nice.
Which one would convince you that I know how to sell? All the words or the example?
Sure. Of course.
Right. Now, here's the thing. Usually, when I've interviewed, people go, okay, wow. And how? And once I explain the how, I can prove how great of a salesperson I am because it's the story, it's the details of the story that matter. Similarly, I love to use this example. If you're interviewing a receptionist and someone comes to you and says, I know how to answer the phone, I hope you look at them in shock and go, really? A receptionist that knows how to answer the phone? We did not know that. Because unless you live in an igloo, a cave, or practice the faith of Mennonite, my 3-year-old son can press the green bell and go, hello, and it's really cute. But if you can quantify, I know how to answer 60 calls a day with 12 different lines, I can measure that. Most people that write resumes have learned either through AI tools to write the terminology.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's say if you're an accountant, I know accounting, I know financial statements, I know general ledger, reconciliation, balance sheet, income statement, right? Cash flow, but they don't quantify
Yep.
their worth,
What are
right?
your
So,
KPIs?
the,
What are your metrics? What have you handled? Yep.
right, right. And so, and then they assume that they're going to say that in the interview. The reality today is that whether it's an AI
Mm.
scanner or a human being, the resume is being read between 5 and 30 seconds. If something catches my attention in 5 to 30 seconds, I'll put you in the yes pile. I've been in interviews like when I worked in finance, where after 9/11 and I was downsized from Fidelity Investments, I went to Invesco. And HR is looking at me and goes, it's great that you're licensed. It's great that you've done the back office and you can correct all the transactions. But have you ever worked in a call center? And I looked at her and go, if you flip to page 2 of my resume, I worked in your call center for 6 months. Oh yeah, there it is. So there's a level where the resume, you have to tell me the story. And the best way I can explain it, and that's probably the simplest and most logical, is if you're lucky enough to be in a relationship, when you come home and tell your partner about work, I'm not talking about I did my job. You'll never guess what I had to deal with today. Like I had to deal with the biggest problem there is. And I spent a half hour thinking about it and I came up with such a brilliant solution.
Mm-hmm.
And then you give the details of that. That's what needs to go on your resume because that will tell me whether or not
Mm.
you are. And depending on which AI scanner or ATS you're using, some of them are still using old, call it algorithms that Monster used to have, and they haven't updated it to reflect the newer market. And so even in resumes, you have such a diaspora of what is considered a good resume. Yes, most recruiters, most HR will kind of go, these are certain things I like. These are some of the headings I like. And this is how I like to see it organized. I'm not dismissing that, but
Mm-hmm.
you need to tell me your story. You need to tell me why you. And most people assume that once they get the interview, they will give all those details. And so I tell people, like when I write resumes, every sentence on your resume needs to be quantifiable. Because if you don't answer, so what, who cares, what's in it for them, or what is the end result that you produced, nobody cares.
Mm-hmm. So it's like it's a marketing piece, right?
In part, like I know how to do data science. Okay. Everything is data science these days. I appreciate that there's designations to learn and be a lot more technical in it, but everything is data driven today. So, what analysis did you do? What insights did you give? How did you make money, save money, or increase efficiency? I really don't care that you just know something. And with no disrespect to anybody, I'm sure you're great, but if you don't highlight that, how, if you're working recruiting, buddy, and I'm working recruiting, how am I supposed to discern that? Like I had a client out of Sweden that does regulatory and compliance in the banking industry, which, as you know, recently there's been tons of penalties and fines because, banks aren't doing know your client, know your business, know your investor, especially when it's international transactions,
Mm.
right? So Wells Fargo just got nailed with $350 million. TD Bank just got nailed with $150 million because they were not compliant. So my client was offering a tool that allows them to be compliant because they do all the background work, like, checking the signatures, checking the IDs, and so forth. Now, the client needed me to find someone who is in regulatory and compliance that also knows how to do sales, which is a needle in the haystack to begin with. I looked at 1,000 LinkedIn profiles. 700 of them had a title, VP of Regulatory and Compliance, dates of work, and the name of the bank that they worked for. I'm like, if you work in compliance and your LinkedIn profile has no information on what compliance work you've actually done, and you think I have the time to message 700 people to go, do you know any sales? Do you know this about compliance? Like, no. Of the remaining 300, I chose the top 100 that I really kind of was drawn to their profile. Of those 100, I interviewed 22. I sent my client 8. My client called me and said, I wish I had the money. I would hire all 8. That is how well you understood my business and understood the culture and kind of what we're trying to represent. But AI cannot do that unless you train AI on how to look at profiles and not just the algorithm of do you have the right technical words, but do you have results? Do you have this? And if it's not defined properly, and this is what's happening with all this massive downsizing, is you're losing that genius. You're losing the genius of problem solving. You're losing the genius of empathy. You're losing the genius of communication right now, because I can't tell you how many emails a day I get. Dear info, we can
Yeah.
optimize your website. We can do SEO for you, for example.
I should change my email to info. Hey, Mr. Info.
Right. So it's interesting right now what's going on in the market. Like I said, I'm not dismissing AI and its benefit, but most people don't understand how to use it. And even if you're doing it for marketing, if everybody that was using AI could automatically, make 6 figures, 7 figures, 8 figures doing marketing, everybody in the world would be in marketing right now.
Yeah.
Right.
So
You
let
still need to learn the science. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, no worries, man. This is good stuff. But I want to ask a question. I want to flip things around to the other side of the equation here. What's the
Uh-huh.
biggest shift you've seen in what job seekers want today?
Okay, so this is kind of a very loaded question, and I'm going to answer it this way. Unfortunately, because of the political unrest in North America, and my experience and my expertise is based in the North American market, right now, up to 45% of jobs are being replaced by AI at the moment. And so it's creating a massive gap because a lot of people that have been doing things for 20 years are scrambling to figure out what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Those that are not scrambling, that know how to market themselves correctly and sell themselves correctly, the younger generation is checking the social responsibility, checking the websites like Glassdoor to see what is the organizational culture, what do people that work there feel and think about the organization. First of all, there is a level of, call it sustainability. There's a level of, again, university students are taught work for a company for 3 to 5 years, leave on very good terms, go see if the grass is greener on the other side. And if it's not, come back. When you come back, you're more likely to get promoted and get the raise that you've wanted because the company will appreciate all you did and how much value you brought. You know, uh, and a good example of that, my father, before he passed away, was a senior director of operation where he was in charge of the construction of 16 buildings. When he passed, the company was trying to save money and decided to hire more junior project managers to replace my
Yeah.
father, who's been doing it for 40 plus years. They ended up hiring 7 people to replace my father and paying 120 to $160,000 a year per person, rather than just paying
Oh, no.
200,000 for somebody that knows what they're doing with 30 years of experience, for example.
Hey, a nickel
And what
saved and a
happened,
dollar lost. Good job.
right? Well, they end up losing $750,000 because of the salaries that they had to
Yeah.
there instead of spending 40, 50,000.
By the way, I want to, before we go too much further, I thought this was interesting. Colleges are teaching their students to stay at a job for 5 years then leave and
Three to
come
five,
back.
yeah,
Yeah.
correct.
So they're kind of teaching them the job hop. What do you which is probably, by the way, I wanna say that's probably right, as much as I wanna not say it's right. But it's probably right. The company probably will bring you back with a promotion, with a raise, or with something when you come back, rather than give it to you while you're there. That's unfortunately sometimes corporate culture. But what do you think about that they're teaching? Do you agree with it? Is this good for business and culture?
Here's the thing. I think like this is why I built cultural transformation systems, because people don't understand how important this is. Because if you have a generic 5-year plan to engage your employees, you know, not everybody wants to be the CEO. Not everybody wants to be a leader.
Yeah, I don't wanna be
So,
CEO anymore, by the way, in case anybody's asking. It's not all it's cracked up to be. Let me be something else.
right. But this is where I think there is kind of a balance between, you know, is younger actually better? You can get a new MBA graduate, but just because you've done well in school and you've done theory does not mean you understand how to apply the theory.
Mhm.
I think there is now where you're seeing a lot of companies going, maybe we should bring back the people that were here for 20, 30 years and so forth. So I do believe that you should do a little change. Like I have switched careers 9 times and jobs over 18 times. And although, let's say, I wish I knew how good I was at recruiting earlier in my career and kind of stuck in it longer and, made a lot more money, I'm thankful for the experiences I've had in different industries, which give me a more holistic understanding of the
Mhm.
business world. And the bigger problem with that is that the education system as a whole is not teaching about passion. It's teaching about get a job. And the definition of a good job has drastically changed. You can make more money testing video games than being an accountant or an engineer nowadays, for example. In fact, there are something like 1,500 new millionaires per day, most of them from app creation or game creation, for example.
Well, as
And
somebody from the
now with
game industry, I'm gonna warn people, that is a recipe for disaster. It is a lottery ticket system, but I do believe that people should be well, let me rephrase that, what I was about to say. Let me rephrase what
okay,
I almost said. If I were a younger man, I would go to startup centers, whether it's San Francisco, Colorado, Austin. I would go work for a company that's post funded or about to be post funded, get a decent salary, but get some stock options, right? That's what I would do if I were
yeah.
money minded and a younger person. But the game industry, just so we're all clear, which I've been a part of for a while, it is taking a huge dump the last couple of years because investors are pulling their money out of investing in the games and investing into AI. So we're going to see, and they're waiting to see how AI impacts game development before they go back in. But there's a lot of money to be made in games if you can get a hit, and it might be a time to start your own company or to start your own thing using AI. But it is a landmine filled industry that's also very cyclical. I just want to bring my 2 cents into that. But I think
And
there's a ton of value of joining lots of companies that are startups and give stock options. Go right ahead, Joseph.
no, I 100% agree with you. And there's a level where, again, it's, I say this now, like, I have a 5.5-year-old and a 3-year-old. I wish I knew some of the stuff that I knew now, like when I was younger.
Don't we all?
But there's a level where I also encourage my kids to discover who or what they're about and use that to kind of guide. Like, my daughter loves dancing and singing right now. If
Hmm.
that is what you want to do, I will do everything in my power to give you every opportunity to have the greatest experiences so that you can choose if that is the option that you want to do.
Oh, 100%.
And, I love
Smooth.
watching Sir Ken Robinson on TED Talks where he talks about does education kill creativity. There's one of, again, uh, Timothy Ferriss, who wrote the 4 Hour Work Week and the 4 Hour Body and the 4 Hour Chef, very obsessed with 4 hours for some reason. He was lecturing at, I believe, Stanford University for 2 weeks, and he challenged the MBA students at Stanford University to try and get a personal email from Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, or Bill Clinton at that time.
Mhm.
And 98% of the university students looked at him and said, that's impossible. They have more security than God. The 2% that didn't give up before they started researching. And one student came across an article that was written in 1982. I believe it was Bill Gates. I don't remember right now. It's been a while since I read the book, where in the article, it mentioned that one of his favorite birthday gifts was a red bicycle he got when he was 10 years old. And at the bottom of the article was an old Pegasus email address. So figuring, okay, I have nothing to lose. He sent an email saying, "Hi, not sure if this is Bill Gates or not, but I read an article from 1982 that says that one of your favorite birthday gifts was the red bicycle. I was curious if you still have the bicycle." Within 24 hours, he got a response saying, "No, I don't, but thank you for reminding me of such a great moment in my life. Signed, Bill Gates." And so, to your question, it's not about, is this a good idea or a bad idea? Should you do video games? Should you build an app? Yes, you can build apps, you can build AI. There are tools that can make it a lot easier for you to build AI platforms right now. But you also need to understand, for example, how am I grounding it? Am I valuing life? Am I valuing certain, let's take the financial industry. People got excited with crypto and blockchain
Mm-hmm.
because it wasn't under the control of government. It is under the control of government now in many cases. There's 360 cryptocurrencies out there, right? But the reason most people got excited is because it created more free flow and the blockchain technology that offered kind of constant tracking of every transaction. But again, in that, and now AI is coming into it, if you stop having guardrails of how money is transferred and the documentations that you need and signatures that you need and compliance in terms of whether it's IFRS taxation rules and so forth, the world will be chaos because eh, we need some sort of regulation because otherwise egos will kick in and everybody's like, mine is the right, mine's the best, and you should follow me. uh, and there's a level where there are opportunities there for young graduates. Anything with the word environment is going to be massively in demand in the next 10, 15 years. Learning, like train the trainer for
Mm.
AI will be one of the biggest in demand jobs there is. Not the actual coding, not the actual build AI, but training AI to learn to think correctly will probably be the most in demand. Unfortunately, as my CTO has shown me, we are about to get a massive tsunami of AI collapsing because all of these people that are being let go because AI can do it faster or better, you're losing the brain power. You're losing the critical thinking. You're losing the empathy. You're losing that. And until companies learn how to store that, how to keep that, you're going to see, like you asked me about resumes. Fine. Like you can challenge me. I welcome the challenge. I'm happy to write you a resume and show you the results on each there because I have my chat scored for you. But there is a level where as much as you can read my books, as much as you can listen to my podcasts, I've invested 30,000 hours of mastery
Mm-hmm.
to be an authority in it. You could do it on your own, but it might take you a lot longer than what it takes me to do it because I figured out and I've cracked the algorithms for pretty much 50 different platforms. So if I've cracked the algorithm for 50 platforms, the odds are that any other platform is using piggybacking on an algorithm that already
Right, right.
exists for it. So it's about knowing that, like, my CTO has been in data architecture for 45 years. He's worked for the Department of Defense. He's worked for the US Air Force. He's worked for Better Up, the Prince Harry charity, where he can see patterns. When he was hired at Intel, the first question he asked Intel executives was, "You want me to build a state of the art learning management system for you? What does success look like?
Mm-hmm.
Define success for me." Most companies can't define it. Most companies can't define what is corporate culture. Most companies can't define how they're mapping their growth. Like, yes, they have strategy for marketing. Yes, they have strategy for this, but they're not necessarily looking at what is the experience that is being created. They're looking at how quickly can we blast information out.
Mm-hmm.
And that is very, very different. And sadly, we're seeing lots of massive gaps. Yes, AI, again, you can ask it legal questions, you can ask a medical question. AI knows, but you need to know how to guide the question correctly. And
Yeah.
this is something that, you know, it is amazing to me how many people understand the structure of code and how to code, but not like when I go to tech conferences, I'm a non-techie. Like I understand techie enough to use it, but like, so for example, I created my own personality assessment. And because I'm trying to protect some of my intellectual property without knowing a single line of code, I embedded JSON into my kind of software so that you cannot download a PDF and you cannot copy the screen. I mean, you can take pictures of it, but
Mm-hmm.
the algorithm is protected because through my CTO, I learned how to instruct to put in protective measures into the assessment, that no two assessments are the same, that the personality, like my in-depth knowledge of personality and awareness is used, and I can reference, DISC and Myers-Briggs because I'm not necessarily stealing their secret sauce. I'm looking at what's public domain. And so I can read the reports and I can, see here's patterns and find those patterns, for example. But again, if let's say, buddy, you are the type of person that loves learning new things, even if you and I are in the same department, instead of giving you a generic 5-year plan that says, where do you see yourself in 5 years and let's make you a director, I can say, buddy, if you achieve these KPIs, we will pay for any course that you want, whether it's personal or professional. I could be in the same department with you, but I love to travel. So if I achieve the same KPIs that you need to achieve, I get a vacation. And that vacation is not my regular allotted vacation. It is bonus, for example, just
Mm-hmm.
like the course is bonus for you. What I built with CTS is an ability to meet people where they're at, see what their needs are, see what their values are, both intrinsic and extrinsic values, and match that to the job, match that to the technical skills. Because if you want to advance in your career and you're very good technically, but you haven't really done strategy work or you haven't done presentation work, the company can see that and then can bridge those gaps by either mentoring you, paying for training, and then giving you smaller tasks to complete that demonstrated. Or with my CTO's background, we can build you an internal LMS that does it for you, for example.
That's
Right.
cool.
But
At CTS, are you
yeah,
seeing more traction from helping candidates find jobs? Or are you finding more traction from companies that want to revamp their system to attract better people, or they want to level up the people that they already have? What are the trends that you're
again,
seeing right now?
I think it's a combination of all three because, posting on Indeed, one job posting on Indeed gets up to 5,000 resumes, triple that if it's a remote job. So 15,000 resumes,
Mm-hmm.
right? Most employers spend 5 to 30 seconds reading a resume. So even if they're getting AI tools to better screen out, it's about teaching the AI tools the correct screening questions.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember 7 years ago, I had a client and I posted a job description where in size 36 font, in red, bolded, highlighted, first sentence of the job description, I wrote, must have 5 years of Python/React experience. I got 180 resumes of, I'm graduating in 2025.
Don't
Okay,
you want to
can
just
my first
don't you
job be
want to just
100?
kiss the want to just kiss
Look,
that?
I love the people that are proactive, but
Uh-huh.
here's the thing. I don't care if you did 5 years on your own experimenting with Python and React and did side projects. That's still 5 years. But
Right.
don't send me a resume saying I have a month of experience, but I'm a quick learner. Because, yeah, everybody says when someone's to ask you, do you know this technical thing? Everybody says, oh,
Right.
I don't. And it will take me 3 years, 5 years to figure out how to do it, too. Everyone
Is
says I'm a
being a
quick learner.
is hearing the phrase "I'm a quick learner" now a trigger word for you from to now mean I don't know anything? Like I don't know how to do this job.
Short answer is yes. Right. Because here's the reality of it. I'll give you a better example. So when I built my call center, I was interviewing people and I came across this girl that had some recruiting background. And I asked her, how did you demonstrate teamwork where you didn't get any credit for it, right? And she was like, well, when I was working as a recruiter, we had this big order and I found a really great candidate and I gave it to the other recruiter and I didn't take any commission. I was such a team player. And literally that was her face. And I was like,
Oy.
right. And I was like, clearly you're somebody that's going to backstab everybody here on this team to get
Mm.
ahead.
Or just
Because
be bitter, right? Be bitter and bitter and bitter until it explodes. But yeah, definitely a warning there.
right. So there's a level where,
But
again,
sorry to cut in,
most,
but I think this is important for our listeners, right? When an HR is asking a question, they're not just gauging your words, they're gauging your response, your emotions, right? It's the whole package. And when you go into an interview and you don't get the job, it's not because you didn't say that. Sometimes it's not because you didn't say the right words. It's also what your body language was telling. I just want to share that with our listeners. But go ahead, Joseph.
I was actually just about to touch on that, where
Go ahead.
you have to understand. I also find that a lot of, unfortunately, like HR that are corporate HR are so in the box trying to get the check mark. Did you say the right word?
Mm-hmm.
That they're not listening to it. So, for example, let's use a few common questions that when people ask me this question, I'm like, you clearly don't really know how to interview. So, first question is, so tell me about yourself. In my opinion, one of the most useless, loaded questions ever created for interviewing. Because most people get nervous and start ranting and babbling. I have 2 kids. I love to travel. Has nothing to do with the job. If someone asks you that redundant question, look them in the eyes or above the eyebrows. It's a martial arts trick. If you're a little bit shy or it's against your culture to look in directly to the eyes,
I look at
smile,
the point of the nose of the bridge of the nose.
right?
Anyway,
Smile and say, where would you like me to begin? Whenever they tell you to begin, they've just hinted you, this is important and this is what you'll probably do on the job. That's why we care about it. Okay. Another very common question is, tell me about this job. And again, you get autoresponder from that. Like, oh, I did this, my responsibilities were, my duties were. Change the question to ask, what are you most proud of in this job?
that's a nice question.
What were your 3 biggest accomplishments? If you cannot describe to me what you're proud of or your accomplishments were on the job, you don't know the job. So this is where it's a little bit of psychology, but when you lead with examples, and like when I teach people to interview, I say there's 9, we'll call them power words, that I don't care if you start with, put them in the middle, or put them in the end. But I recommend to start them because they set the tone and the energy of the answer. And those 9 words are proud, significance, success, contributions, achievements, accomplishments, results, importance, and impact.
Yep.
Okay. Now, when you say those words, you need to give me specific example. Because if you say to me, just sorry, 1 second.
Yeah, those are huge, powerful words, by the way. Everything he just said, write those down.
Right. So again, those 9 words are proud, significant, success, contributions, achievements, accomplishments, results, importance, and impact. If you're telling me about something that you're proud of, like, I'm really proud of the fact that I, in my first year of recruiting did $750,000 sales, you're not proud. If you're proud, your shoulder blades will be back, your chest will be out, you'll be speaking from your diaphragm, and your body language will indicate that. Now, you can say, you know what, I was working as a recruiter. In my first year, I did $760,000. I'm really proud of that. You can say, when I was hired as recruiting, everybody was generating about $140,000. I generated 5 times that, generated $760,000, and it was a really proud moment in my life. It doesn't really matter. I personally suggest to start with the word because it's easier to structure the message. And if I say to you, I'm proud of this, or this is one of my accomplishments, and you, buddy, as the interview go, oh, can you give me more details on that? Or can you give me a second similar example? You've just given a massive clue to whoever's interviewed that ding, 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 ding. This is what they need for the job. This is what you're probably going to do day to day on the job, for example. So another, let's say, question that
I
this
think
is where
important tip
generic.
here, if I can jump in real quick, is when
Please.
somebody's hiring, and what Joseph just touched on, they're trying to solve a problem. And if during the interview you can somehow magically stumble upon, or not so magically pull out of them, what that problem is, and show that you can solve it, the chances of hiring you are going to double, right?
Or
So,
more. Yes.
well,
Right.
I'm trying not to be too outrageous, but
Fair.
if you have no ethics and they weren't going to hire you, doubling zero is still zero, by the way.
Right. And so, for example, what are your strengths? Again, it is so generic and redundant because everyone says, I'm a team player with excellent communication skills and interpersonal skills, and I'm really hardworking and dedicated, and yada, 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 yada. So change the question slightly. If I were to meet one of your closest friends
Mm-hmm.
and ask them to describe you in 3 or 4 words as if they're setting you up on a date, how would they describe you? Now, here's the thing what's interesting about that question. I've had people rationalize to me which friend will set them up on a date. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Sarah thinks I'm crazy, so not Sarah. But Jane will say, so the moment they say that out loud, I'm like, okay, duly noted, you're crazy.
Yeah.
Right? Because you just admit that to me. But here's the thing. If for a date, your friends would describe you as hardworking, dedicated, committed team player with excellent communication skills, that is the worst date in history. But again, if you're saying to me, I'm bubbly and I'm outgoing and I'm energetic, your physiology doesn't match what you're saying. Clearly, you're trying to give me a correct answer, but that's not who you are.
Yeah. And this
Right.
is I want to emphasize what Joseph is saying here, right? It's don't give it if we can detect that you're just looking for the right answer and giving the right answer, we know it's not the real truth, and therefore it's not helping you. It's not helping your case, I should say. We do want to find the right people for the right jobs.
Right. And because, again, turnover is costing $1.9 trillion. And typically speaking, if somebody leaves a job in the first 3 to 6 months, it costs the company
Oh,
almost double and a half to replace that person from a
yeah.
perspective of the time it takes to find the candidates, the time it takes to interview. Even when they train you, it's usually surface level training, et cetera, et cetera.
It's
Right.
huge disruption.
Yeah. And all the overtime, all the stress that all the other workers, and if they're not getting paid for all this extra work, they also start disengaging and start caring less. And it's a ripple effect of everything that's going to be. So there's a level where I think the industry as a whole needs to be better at really understanding the psychology of the question and kind of physiology of the answer as well as the actual answer. Because again, from my own experience, because I test this, I used to, not anymore because I've done it with 12,000 people now, but I used to write resume. Like, let's say my brother will finish his third year mechanical engineering, applied for an internship. By the time one of the companies responded to him, it was going to be more of a paper push job, and he already registered for his fourth year classes. So he asked me to cancel the interview for him. I decided to go in as my brother. I studied economics and business. The only thing I know about mechanical engineering is what I wrote for him on his resume. My first interview, there was 100 students from 4 major universities in Ontario, Canada. Within 45 minutes, human resource called me back, said, we love you. We need to come back for a second interview. I was like, all right, let's see how far I can take this. My second interview was with the manager of the department that I'd potentially work with. Now, I spoke the truth about my brother's resume because I wrote my brother's resume. Okay. So my brother was in a team that designed a wheelchair for third world nations that uses a tank chain so it can go on any terrain. Won $500 from a major bank, told the manager I studied thermodynamics and quantum physics. To this day, I have no idea what those are. Didn't even leave the Didn't even lot. Manager called me, said, I adore you. I need to come back for a third and final interview. Out of 100 candidates, I made it to the final 3. I was the first one in at 8:30 in the morning. Manager walked over to me and goes, here's your offer letter. The job is yours. All you have to do is pass this mechanical engineering test. I looked at him. I looked at the test. I looked at him. I looked at it. I'm like, I can't do this test. Manager looked at me and goes, I know you're nervous. Let me help you. He solved the first 2 questions for me. I looked at him. I'm like, listen, I'm so sorry for wasting your time. I guess I'm a lot more comfortable with the design than I am with the calculations. I am not the right candidate for this job. Thank you for the opportunity. Manager followed me to the car and begged me to take the job because I'd interviewed that much better than every other mechanical engineer. Right. And so there's a level where I will also say this to job seekers. It is rough out there. It is a disaster right now. But
Mm-hmm.
you need to be proactive. You need to print your resume and go in person to that company. And even if you get there at 9 a.m. and you have to wait there till 3
Yes.
o'clock till somebody speaks to you,
Yes.
okay, then that is what it takes. Be different, do things that other people aren't doing. Like my
And
favorite
the
color is, go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead.
My favorite color is purple and I wear it everywhere. If you look me up, like I went to a networking event when I met my CTO with 50,000 people that attended it. I had on a purple shirt, I had a purple bag, I had purple pens, I had purple business cards, I had a purple notebook. Even if they don't remember my name,
Mr. Purple.
they remember the purple, right? As part of branding.
You're in Reservoir
Figure out,
Dogs. You'd be Mr. Purple.
yeah, exactly. And so there's a level of branding yourself, but people that have been proactive to reach out to people like LinkedIn, don't go to the director or the VP, go to just an employee that works there.
Well, I want to
Get to know a
circle
little bit of
back.
the company.
I'm not a big fan
Please.
of people. I think two things here, two ways here. I'm not a big fan of LinkedIn when I post a job and there's clear way to apply and then there's a clear process and then people are trying to slide into my DMs, especially when they don't follow the process and they try to skip it. I'm not a fan of that. But I am a fan and want to circle back on what Joseph was saying is if possible, go in person with your resume and try to meet people. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. The Amish swear by it. The old ways are the best ways. And one of the things that really gets under my skin, I see it on LinkedIn and X.com, is people complaining that they don't get any interviews, they haven't gotten a job, and they've applied for 300 jobs. When they use the word apply, it's not the same as in the early 90s when I applied for a job. I had to put on a suit, get on a bus or bike or car, and go in and physically wait and talk to a person and hand in my resume. And if I was lucky, the manager would spend 5 minutes with me accepting my resume and getting like a, kind of a look at me and judging me, right? That required time. I had to be prepped. I had to be ready. My hair had to be clean. I had to have a suit. I had to have, or not a suit, but I had to have clothes, right? I had to dress up, get out of my pajamas and go to a physical place and shake a physical hand and look somebody in the eye. Applying on LinkedIn where you push the easy apply button on a resume that's already uploaded is not applying for a job. You didn't apply 300 places until you do what Joseph just said, right? Do try to talk to somebody, whether it's on LinkedIn, but also if it's in your city, go there. Even if they say they don't accept resumes. Oh, okay. Well, I was just hoping I could chance to introduce myself to an HR or to a manager while I'm here. Put a face to the name, type of thing. That little bit can be a huge difference in today's world. Whereas Joseph and myself, but as Joseph just pointed out, he posted a job on Indeed or LinkedIn or any of these sites. Pick one, doesn't matter. 5,000 resumes pop up in your email box, right? How are you going to stand out? Stop complaining about the system and stop complaining about not getting a job. Start looking at the other side. If you look at the other side of the coin and understand the other person's problem, this is sales, this is marketing, this is job applying, this is everything in life, right? If you put yourself in the shoes of Joseph or Joseph's clients and they're getting 5,000 resumes, understand what they have to do and the systems that they have to have in place in order to find the best candidates out of those 5,000, you'll start to understand their perspective, which allows you to come up with a strategy to get through it and be successful. And I just want to say,
Absolutely.
sometimes the old ways are the best ways. There's nothing wrong with going in person and introducing yourself. Go ahead, Joseph.
So I'm going to add in even extra gold nugget to that. So even though most job descriptions in North America say, don't call us, we'll call you, call them and say, my internet just crashed, or my computer just rebooted, or my battery just died, or I never got a confirmation. Can you check that my application went through?
Mm.
So if, let's say, a company receives 5,000 resumes, most HR professionals look at the first 100 and figure we'll probably find somebody in the batch of 100. So if
Oh,
you were 102nd on the list, when you call and say, can you check that it went through? The moment they check, you're first on the list. Now you have them on the phone. You have 2 minutes to give your elevator pitch of one achievement that you did that relates to that job that they should consider, because you're planting the seed that says, I would be a good fit for this. And since you already got them on the phone, you can ask them, when are they starting to interview for this role? So if they say, for example, we're going to interview in a week, say to them, if I don't hear from you in a week, can I call back to get feedback on my resume to see what was missing? And the reason you're asking for that is because if you weren't selected in the first 100, if you actually take the time to call back and ask feedback, they might reconsider you because you're more proactive than pretty much 98% of people on the market, for example. So, there is
100%.
that.
And also, if they didn't find somebody in the first 100, they're looking at the next 100. You're putting yourself at the top of that list.
Correct. And so there's all these nuances. Same thing, like, it is amazing to me. Like, let's say I tell people to network, but to strategically network, not go in there with, I need to collect, 100 business cards. That's you. Like, I've been to networking events where people have walked by me and go, you sound kind of important. Can I have your card? Sure. And then they
And if
email
you
me
didn't
like,
say that to the
hey,
next
I got,
people,
and they email me the next go, oh, I got your card yesterday. Here's my resume. Can I get a job? Now, unless your resume is spectacular, my first reaction is, who are you? Why am I there? And most people go to networking with such a wrong mindset because they go with quantity over quality,
yes,
first of all.
yep. It's about building
Right. Second thing
relationships.
is,
It's about meeting people and having enough time and enough conversation that they'll remember you. Otherwise, what's the point? There's no point. You can reach more people randomly online. It's just not about quantity. I'm agreeing 100% with Joseph here. It's about quality. Building
but
the start of building a relationship.
right. And here's where I'm going to take it a step further. If you're going to go to networking events, go to ones that cost you a little bit of money. All the free ones are all the job seekers, not the employers or the decision makers, first of all. Second of all, if you're going, so for example, in North America, you have a Board of Trade or a Chamber of Commerce or a BIA,
Rotary.
depending on the city that, or the people that attend those, especially when it's like a $50 ticket or whatever, are usually decision makers because they're the ones willing to pay $50. Now, when you go to a networking event, especially when you want a job, the worst thing you could come is like, hey, oh, you're an executive in this company. Can I get a job? Can I get a job? Can I get it? No, you have not earned the right. So first thing you need to do is make the conversation about them, not about you. So if I met Buddy at a networking event, I'm like, oh, Buddy. And he introduces himself. I'm a whatever director, VP at this company. I'm like, oh, great. Buddy, can I ask you what made you so successful? Get them to brag. Buddy, what are your 3 biggest accomplishments so far in your career? Get them to brag. Because the moment you start asking questions about them and they're bragging, they're going to love the conversation. Because unless they're applying for a job themselves or their partner, they don't get a chance to say how great they are. And people love that by default. But if you start with that and then transition to, what kind of a leader are you? How would you define your leadership? And get them to tell you. How would you mentor somebody in this industry or someone that works for you? They're giving you insights on what it is. Now, if they've bragged and they talked about how they mentor, you can now transition to say, I'm in the industry. I would love to get your expert advice on what would make my resume an even better. Would you give me feedback or critique my resume? They're writing the perfect resume they want to see.
Now, I think it's important. You got to build some relationship before you go for this closing right here. If it's in the first 30 seconds or 2 minutes, the game is up, right? You gotta lead it. You gotta cultivate it a little bit more before you go with that. But
right,
I love
but
it.
the
I love what you're
cultivating,
going with.
what the cultivating is like, but I'm asking about your authority and your expertise. I'm asking about your career. I'm asking
I
about
picked up on the
how
keywords,
you,
and our listeners should too, right? You're
right,
re-emphasizing that they're an expert. Go ahead.
right. And there's a level where you have to understand, again, generally, like, look, if I'm coming in, oh, what's the weather like, sports team, like, it's too cookie cutter and it's too the same for everybody else. Again, I mentioned my favorite color, purple. But for males, if you're going to brand yourself, you can wear a fedora. Like when I was living in Ottawa in Canada, I had a guy that was wearing like the most neon fedora. Nobody in Ottawa could remember his name, but they could remember the fedora. For example, you can wear a funny tie. You can wear an original shirt or whatever that's a particular pattern or color. You could wear a brooch. You could wear
Yeah, and you can go classy, you can go outlandish. You can have suspenders, you can have a neon fedora.
right, but do something that is your signature. For ladies, you have a lot more variety on what you can play with, like your hair, your earrings, your makeup. Pashmina or scarf. Again, necklace, a brooch. There, but do it so that it's an easy way to build rapport and it's a great conversation starter because it's not the typical hey, oh, you're working for here, hi, okay, there. Like, I'll never forget, I was at an event called Networking for Nerds.
Mm-hmm.
The name
Oh,
of the
that's
event should
great.
tell you everything, right? And I
But
come
wait,
in,
why
I'm
were
looking
you
around,
there, Joseph? No, I'm just kidding.
and I came across these four guys that were having a conversation. I stood listening, and I was like, when I saw the right time, kind of introduced myself. I got into the conversation. I'm like, what do you do? And all four of them were technical IT writers. And I was, okay, that's great. That's awesome that you're technical IT writers. Do you guys publicize your like, materials or your writing style on LinkedIn? They looked at me with the most arrogant,
Now
like
they're GitHubbers, right?
judgmental, and like, why would we do that? People will steal our content. I'm like, you're at an event called Networking for Nerds, trying to drum up business, and all four of you are technical writers, and you're having a conversation together rather than working the room.
Mm-hmm.
And they looked at me and were like, what makes you such an expert? And the way they said it, it would just struck me. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe the fact that I've written 10 books, I've written 20 manuals for companies, I've helped 12,000 people land their dream job, and I've been a generalist in recruiting for 20 years, working for companies like Deloitte, Touche, Shape Pharmaceutical, Tata Consulting Services, a few other companies. That's what makes me an expert. And as soon as I said it, one of the guys went, what were you saying about LinkedIn that we need to do? Kind of thing.
That's one way
Right.
to win over the crowd.
Right, but again, it's not. Listen, I've had a collection of unusual experiences in my 20 plus years and switching so many jobs that, I can get away with doing certain things because I've earned the right. Like when I was interviewing to be a stock trader at the bank that I mentioned earlier in our conversation, HR started asking me really like yes or no questions. Like, do you know empathy? Yes. Okay. Are you okay with lots of call volume? Yes. After the third question, I got so angry at her interview that I literally went to her and went, stop. You're asking me the wrong questions. If you want to know if I can do this job, you need to ask me the following question. I took out pen and paper and I wrote down about 10, 12 questions. And I kind of slammed it on the table and slid it to her. She just looked at me like, are you really telling me how to do my job? And we looked eyes like for like a good minute. And I was like, I'm not backing down. I'm like, look at the questions. She finally kind of looked down, looked at me like, who the hell are you? Read my questions, looked at me and went, okay, you're hired. Can I use your questions because I need to hire 25 more people?
Yeah, I last little bit here that we can segue with this is we're not always looking for the bubbly, happy people when we're applying. The attitude needs to match the role, right? Here you showed competency for her role and your own role, and that impressed her, and that was more important than being super likable, right? Not every job is about being super likable. If I'm hiring a manager, they're in a tough position. Not everyone's going to like them all the time. If they need to seek approval from everyone, they're probably not going to be a great manager for very long. Just an opinion here. But anyway, we've talked a lot about tips for candidates, which I love, by the way. But I want to make sure we give a chance for our business owners here. Let's flip the script.
Mhm.
What are the, you know, I can ask a million questions around this, but if you can help me zone in, that'd be great. What are the tips and tricks for hiring? And I do want to specialize on one thing. I would love to get your take on this. How can smaller companies, medium-sized companies, especially, determine when a candidate is lying or unfit, especially ethically or soft skills for the roles that they're hiring for? Because if a small company hires the wrong people, it's game over for a small company sometimes,
Yep.
right? It can take months before they realize the mistake. But anyway, so what is your advice for smaller companies hiring people? what are the tips and tricks that they can use? Not just call Joseph and call Buddy, which is obviously step one, but step two, if they want to do it themselves, right? What are the tips and tricks they can use to make sure that they're hiring a good candidate during the interview process?
So again, ask for specific examples. So like I mentioned earlier, what are the three biggest accomplishments that you had in this job? Why did you pick those accomplishments, for example? And get a little bit in there. Depending on the role, there's also kind of, I know that, for example, the airline industry is notorious for making you wait for about an hour, hour and a half before the interview on purpose, just to
Mm,
see how you react when things don't go on schedule. And if you're angry and yelling and screaming, you're clearly not qualified to be a flight attendant, for example.
hmm
But you can
And
create
it makes sense for their
situations or,
industry, right? Flights are always
yeah,
delayed. Customers are upset at being delayed. So if you're upset, that's just going to be a double whammy. Continue.
right. So there's a level where, like, if you're hiring salespeople, for example, you can kind of create like the day from hell and have your team act it out and then turn around and go, do you want this? If they're hesitating, they're not going to handle it, for example. Right.
hmm
So that's another way. But like, give them real life. Like, we just had this situation. How would you approach it? And
So
look at
scenario based questions.
either scenario based or, like, again, in a sense of, like, I'm a big believer in personality assessments and psychometrics that give you insights on them. I recommend to use them. There's a ton of them out there: Myers-Briggs, DISC, Colby. They're phenomenal tools that give you insights as to who or what. But I also like to ask questions that, let's say, they're not prepared for, that are not job related, but they are. For example, if you had the opportunity to meet three people that are dead or alive, who would you choose and why? Now, here's the thing: if they choose celebrities because they're celebrities, very superficial.
Mm.
If they choose a family member that passed away, strong family values. But, like, I'll
So
give
you're
you
looking for
kind
the
of,
theme that they're giving, not the
I'm
specific.
looking at the why, not the person. I'm
Mhm.
looking for the why. So I'm going to answer by giving you some of mine. So one of my people is Salvador Dali. He's one of my favorite
Oh, he's one of my
painters,
favorite artists, and he's got a
right?
crazy story and a crazy life, and he trained very
Right.
traditionally and then twisted it and then started a whole new movement. Go on, go on.
But the fact that he could create so many hidden images within an images with a brushstroke, not map it out in the kind of how he wants it. It just, I'll just do these brushstrokes. I would love to understand that creative process of how he came about, right? Shakespeare is another one for me that, again, to this day, we're still using his stories. He wrote more than anybody else in history, whether short or long form, he wrote, kind of thing. Steve Jobs, Vince McMahon, and Bill Gates, I'll put them together because they took nearly bankrupt companies and made them monopolies. And to understand the strategy thinking, understand uh, that. So start asking questions like, three people that you meet that are alive. Like, for me, one of the people that I want to meet, and again, this might sound very weird. I'm Jewish and I'm very proud of my Jewish heritage. But one of the people I want to meet is Hitler. Not because I want to kill him, not because I want to harm him. I want to understand mainly two things from him. Number one, what caused him to hate Jews so much, given that he was half Jewish? And number two, what he said to convince the rest of the world to hate us. Once I understand the root of the hate, the next person I want to meet is Gandhi because he spoke peace more powerfully than anybody else. And maybe if I understand the root of the hate, I can contribute to peace in the Middle East, to tolerance, to understanding, because we can change the conversation and change propaganda and buried messages.
hmm
Another great question, again, I don't care particularly the answer, I care about the why. If you could be any animal, mystical or real, which animal would you choose and why? And I want you to think about it from the characteristic of the animal. Usually, the first three or four characteristics that someone gives without thinking about it is what their personality is already like.
hmm
And if you ask them afterwards, what other characteristics that you haven't mentioned would you also associate with an animal? Whatever they mention after that, it's what's missing or they want more of in their life. with a 90% accuracy without getting into too much detail. So
That's
even
awesome.
if you ask like a psychology based question, like you're going to be stuck on an island, you're allowed to bring 5 things with you. What 5 things would you choose and why? And let's assume that cell phone is not one of those things and it's automatically with you, because I understand we're all attached to our technology kind of thing. The 5 things that you choose will tell me how your brain thinks and what your value systems are, right? Because if you're going to be on a lonely island and you're like, I'm taking a photo album of my family and friends, it says versus I'm taking my TV.
By a quick
So,
circle back here, a book
yeah,
recommendation for you and for everyone. Gandhi and Churchill. I thought it was Gandhi versus Churchill, but it's called Gandhi and Churchill by Arthur Herman. I read this years ago. Fantastic book that also encapsulates sort of the history and the time period that they were in. And I didn't, before I read it, I didn't even know they were alive at the same time. That's how bad my education was. And that it's fantastic read. I recommend it to you.
right. And thank you. I will definitely take a look into that. But there's a level where you can ask a few psychology questions that are not necessarily patterned for the job itself,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you watch any of the Darman videos, create situations where you have the CEO pretending to be an applicant, but that's poorly dressed or whatever, and see the behaviors of how they treat when no one's looking, kind of
Yeah,
thing.
for sure.
Uh, Definitely gives you a lot of insights for it. Uh, I think there needs to be, again, even in interview questions, instead of tell me about this job, more specific, like what is your accomplishment? What is a strategy that you implemented that, now that you have had more experience, you might do slightly different this time around?
When it
And
comes to, and these are all great, by the way, when it comes to ferreting out ethical shortcomings, do you rely on the personality test and the tell me about your qualifications or quantify your qualifications, tell me about your KPIs? Or how do you ferret out the really nefarious ethical shortcomings from certain candidates? Because if a manager steals or an employee steals, or if they're actually sabotaging, especially a small business, that's absolutely devastating. How would you look for that type of problem from a candidate?
again, you can either create a situation where, for example, there's money on the floor and you see if they have the decency to say, hey, somebody dropped this or whatever, or they pocket it. There is, again, create a I don't know if you've ever seen the show What Would You Do, where they kind
I
of
haven't.
film you in a. So it's kind of like where, like, for example, you're in a restaurant and somebody's being very racist, and they're recording to see the customers' reactions to see if somebody would step up and say, "This is not okay. You cannot treat somebody like that." So you can create those kind of role plays to see if somebody would take ownership or speak to that. Again, the body language tells you quite a bit and the physiology of it. There is, and I'm going to flip it also for the interviewer. One of the things that I love to teach people, one, there's 3 questions I love to ask at the end of an interview. And especially the third one is the most important one. The first question is, what would you say is the biggest obstacle for success in this position?
Mm.
Because I want to see what they think success looks like. Right. And then whatever examples, repeat them, even if you've given them before, that that you can do it or you have done it. Second question is, if I were hired tomorrow, what is the first thing I can do to make an immediate impact? They're telling you what the expectation on the job is. And the third one, and goes kind of in both ways, of other people that currently hold this position or have held this position in the past, what are some of the characteristics that you would like to see repeated? And then the second part of this question, which is the most important, is, and how do you see me fitting in? If they're hesitating, and thinking about it, you're not getting the job.
Right.
If they answer you right away, you've impressed them and you're in the running. So there's a level where if you're asking me about morals and ethics, if you give me a situation and I need to think about the answer I'm giving you, and it's clearly an
Oh,
ethical issue, the hint is they will potentially question their ethics or, with the right circumstances, break them.
sure. I do
Because
want to throw in
someone
a
who's
small caveat here. You do need to check their behavior for all the previous questions. For example, I have a great employee right now. He's been with me a long time, but he will hesitate with every question. He will take 30 seconds to answer any question, whether it was ethical or non ethical, because he's a careful thinker. But I agree with what Joseph said, but you have to match it
Right,
to previous
right. And
behaviors.
thank you for correcting that. But there's a level of kind of, again, there's nothing wrong with thinking of the question, but it's also their,
Checking the body
I'll
language
use
and
the
the
word
physiology.
logic. Yeah, and the logic that they're using. Like Google
Mm,
used to be notorious for asking questions like, how do you weigh your head, for example? Right? Just because I wanted to see, like, and then again, the most common, like chop it off and put it on a scale or whatever. If you've studied buoyancy, you can talk about filling a bucket of water and putting your head in, and the amount of water that gets dispersed out. You can calculate the weight. If you wear baseball caps, and you can kind of say, my head is this size, therefore, by what science has proven, my head weighs this much. But it wasn't necessarily the answer. It was the logic of the
mhm,
answer that was there, because again, it's more of how you're approaching the problem. Are you approaching it from emotion? Are you approaching it from this is rational? Are you approaching it from this is common? Are you approaching it from I do what everybody else is doing kind of thing?
mhm.
There's great science experience where, let's say, you're waiting in a waiting room for a doctor, and every whatever 2 minutes somebody stands up, just randomly stands up, and they video that within like 15 minutes, everybody just starts standing up every 2 minutes when the buzzer goes off. They don't know why they're doing it. No one's questioning why it's being done. They just follow along. So it's, depending on the company and depending on situation, you can create those situations to see if they'll follow along or there. So there's a very famous story with Henry Ford, was interviewing two engineers to come work for him. And he invited them for dinner. One engineer was super arrogant and was talking down at the waitress and giving her attitude. The other one thanked her and appreciated the work. They both ordered their food. The first engineer, that was arrogant and talking down to the waitress, before tasting the food, started putting salt on it. Henry Ford looked and goes, I've made my decision. I'm hiring the other engineer. And the first engineer goes, what do you mean? This is unfair. You didn't even ask me a single question. Henry Ford said, you changed the taste of the food before testing it. I need an engineer that will taste first or test it first and then make changes. You also behaved badly to the waitress and behaved like you were arrogant. You were, I'm better than everybody else. And I don't want that on my team. I need someone that can understand there.
I've never met an
And again,
engineer that behaved that way.
but again, for most professions, like unless you're a brain surgeon or really well-known surgeon for any other category where they don't care about your attitude and your behavior. And the reason I said brain surgeon because it's such a specialized niche. The majority of jobs out there, it's more about how well they like you rather than can you do the job or not. Because if they like you, they'll teach you,
Sure. And I think if we
right?
flip this to the owner off of the candidate, right? You can prioritize some amount of soft skill and EQ over IQ and skill because you can train them. But if you hire them, you're probably going to work with them for months or years. It's going to be hard if you don't like them.
Right. Again, unless it's like you're, for example, in the four major psychologies, if you're very analytical and you're hiring someone who's expressive to be a salesperson, there's a reason you're hiring the expressive to be a salesperson or vice versa. So, there's an adage in English that says, as a CEO of a company, I should never be the smartest man in the room. And I 100% agree with that because I might know,
Maybe that's
let's
why they keep
say,
making me the CEO. Jokes aside, jokes aside.
all
No,
right,
but you
it's all
don't need
good.
to hire people that are like you, but you need to hire people for the right fit, the right role. But you also have to be able to work beside them for months and years, possibly.
Right. And it's a level of having, like, I pay a lawyer to check the nuances of law that I might
Hmm.
not know, even though I'm fascinated by law. I hire an accountant because they know all the loopholes of minimizing my taxes that I don't, right? I might understand social media marketing, I know how it works, but my brain doesn't work with, I need to do the algorithm of Facebook. So
Hmm.
I will hire someone that knows what they're doing that can explain to me this is what we're doing, and this is the expected result that we're going to get from it. Right. And surround myself with people that are geniuses in whatever they are geniuses in, that together and collaboratively, my vision, my this is growing, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, my CTO has 2 PhDs, and sometimes like, can you do this for me? He's like, no, I'm going to teach you how to do this. And I'm like, I don't want to learn it. I just want you to do it. And we'll have arguments for maybe 40 minutes because I'm in a rush and I want something to get something done. But I actually appreciate that he's taking the time to teach me, because he's teaching me to be, underneath him as a master of AI rituals and AI governance and AI this, without
Yeah.
having. You're laughing, but I'm dead serious about it, kind
No,
of
I love
thing,
the word.
because right, that allows companies to grow correctly and not depend on technology there, where you have, you know, the input of, let's say, your experiences and your knowledge in recruiting and your clients combined with my knowledge, so that when a new hire comes in, even if they're new graduates starting in the industry, there is knowledge that's given to them so that they can kind of go, this works and this work, and they both work. You can choose the elements that work to make you work, because personalities are different, styles are different, but the methodologies are somewhat consistent, right? So
Mm-hmm.
when you're doing recruiting and you need to screen a resume, you and I are both looking at physiology. We might look at slightly different things, but we're both looking at physiology. We're both looking that the candidate can back up what they say and they're not just robotic in their answer and trying to give me a memorized textbook's answer. I'll never forget an accountant fresh off the boat from China that came to interview with me, and I asked him, what do you like most about accounting? He went, accounts payable, accounts receivable, reconciliation. I'm like, okay, great. What do you like the least about
Right.
accounting? Right? What do you like least about accounting? Accounts payable, accounts receivable, reconciliation. Like, okay. What's the hardest part about accounting? Accounts payable, accounts receivable, reconciliation. Like, what's the easiest part about accounting? Accounts payable, and basically he had memorized accounts payable, accounts receivable. I stopped the interview. I said, listen, unless you only want to work for a Chinese company, no one is going to hire you if you don't understand basic English.
Yeah.
Go study English for 6 months, come back to me. I'll interview you again. He actually came back to me 6 months later and told me I was the only recruiter that was honest with him about how bad his English was.
Mm.
I tested his English. 2 weeks later, I got him a starting job at around $60,000 because the English was there and then the technical skills matched, kind of thing. Uh,
Nice. Very nice.
but it's a matter of, there are certain things that how you approach it. You know, if there's a collective of information, any new hire kind of goes, here's the different strategies, here's the different tools, here's the different techniques. Based on my personality, I'm going to use this, 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 and now let me see if this triangle creates momentum for me of doing well in the industry or profession. We are now in a bubble where a lot of that knowledge is disappearing because companies are downsizing in volume. Companies are
Yeah.
counting their pennies to make a dollar. Companies are jumping on the AI bandwagon, but they're not checking that.
Are you seeing that after a huge wave of layoffs, which were for AI, which I think half the time they're just using AI as the excuse because everybody else is using AI as the excuse? Are you also seeing a huge wave of them rehiring back in because they fired too many?
Again, I think it's right now, at least in North America, because of the American president and the Canadian leader that is equally as bad, in my opinion. At the moment, there's a lot of uncertainty. But what I am noticing is that a lot of companies are starting to understand we need to bring back the older. We need to bring back the experienced and knowledgeable that can create strategy, that know how to communicate, that can articulate their thoughts, not just have ChatGPT write everything for them. Again, I'm not dismissing the speed at which AI can do things, but you still need someone to kind of understand it. And you need to
Mhm.
teach AI who you are, what you've gone through, what are your experiences, traumas, successes. because then the AI will, in essence, be your best friend that has eidetic memory that can help you make decisions better because they recall things that have been done in the past and can give you pattern, right? But again, like let's say the automotive industry, every year there's 150,000 plus cars being recalled because they cut corners and they
Mm,
use cheaper parts and so forth. Because yes, it's cheaper to outsource to China and so forth, but we're giving up quality control, right? All these AI bots that are supposed to play human call centers, that if you try to get through the bot before the pre-recorded message is done, cannot function. It does not know what to do.
mm,
And companies are seeing that now going, yeah, like, let's say companies like LinkedIn, they don't have a phone number anymore unless you got a contact of a salesperson, for example, but they don't have a phone number. And more like me right now, my Facebook is working on my phone, but it won't work on my laptop.
mm,
And I'm trying to put tickets, but I'm getting an AI bot that goes, here's maybe a solution and here's maybe another solution. I'm like, but you're not addressing my problem. And
mm-hmm.
so you're going to see a lot of this kind of collapsing on itself because, yes, like, you know, I'm amused when I call my cell phone provider and their voicemail says, now with live agents. I'm like, cell phone provider with live agents. But again, it depends for what, and it depends for how well you teach the personas, how well you kind of there. And right now, the world's a little bit upside down, and it will be for the next few years because between the political landscape and this excitement about AI, we're in a bubble where everyone's scrambling to figure out what is AI, how AI works, you know, what can we control, what can we not control, how do we store data, how do we store energy, for example, for it? Because again, AI knows everything that's ever been digital.
Mm,
But if you've ever read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, every time you read that book, something else will come out of it for you, depending on where you are in life. And I think this is one of the things that we also need to understand, that companies that are using AI need to have those conversations with their AI to make sure that moral standards, ethics, processes, procedures are documented and documented correctly. There's a very famous story slash adage of a ship that breaks down. There's 18 engineers on the ship and they can't figure out how to fix the engine. So they call this engineer that's been working on ships for 30, 40 years. And he comes over, goes to his toolkit, grabs a hammer, hits the hammer, and the engine starts right away.
yep.
And he sends the VP an invoice for $10,000. The VP looks and goes, "You were here for 5 minutes. Can you give me a detailed breakdown of why it's $10,000?" And the engineer responds, $2 for hammer, $9,998 to know where to hit the hammer.
Yep. Yep.
Right. And I think we have forgotten that concept of there. Like, I am terrified of students that are going to graduate, let's say in engineering, and
Mm,
go build a bridge or a house because ChatGPT did the calculation. I live in Toronto, Canada. We just had 2-3 weeks of minus 30 degrees outside. At minus 30 degrees, you cannot pour concrete or foundation because it will crack.
probably
But
freezing
if
while you
you,
pour it.
right, if you put it through ChatGPT and ChatGPT says yes, because you did not give a parameter of it's minus 30 degrees outside, we need to
Garbage in,
adjust our
garbage out.
schedule. Right. And I think this is kind of, I'm terrified of, engineers, doctors that ChatGPT learned for them and
Yep.
answered for them to the level of, yeah, you got into university, you got accepted a job, but you can't think for yourself.
Yeah. I mean, we're already seeing it with the interns and the applicants that are coming through. We're already seeing the cut corners of leaving. Now that I've written this for you, would you like me to answer this, this, and that at the end of their documents, their work, or their resume?
Yeah.
Anyway, we're coming to the end of our time here, and it's been great and insightful to have you on. What are some of the best ways for people to get in touch with you?
So Fastest and best is LinkedIn because I'm extremely active there. I have 28,500 first level connections. So message me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best. Joseph Stetter. I think I'm the only Joseph Stetter on LinkedIn. And if you ever need for my last name, think of the word stutter, but instead of a U, put an E. And that's a kind of difference. Cultural transformation systems.com, the celebrategroup.com, josephstetter.com. Those are all kind of resources. I'm on all of the social medias, but I'm most active on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. Do you do productized pricing, or do you guys is everything custom? If someone wanted to engage with you to help land the career of their dreams, what type of pricing should they be considering?
So I do a little bit of both. So the basic services, write your resume, let's say write your LinkedIn profile. That can range you around $400 or $500. But again, I optimize it to the level that you'll get noticed right away.
Hey, if that
Then
helps you
there
land
is
a $100,000 job, that's like 0.005% or something in
correct.
terms of cost.
There is services such as interview training, networking training, beating the job boards, specifically working with recruiters and agencies, because a lot of people do that wrong as well. Salary negotiation. So there is services in terms of I hold your hand until you get hired versus I need you to at least get me noticed, for example, and what goes in between that. So even let's say the podcast that you're doing, I tell people all the time, you know how great podcasting for you to get a job by reaching out to executives and companies that you want to work for and interviewing what made them successful, what what are they most proud of, what are their biggest achievements, what strategies they've implemented in the past that were a huge hit and why, and how they mentor and how they treat their staff gives you a ton of insights on who they are and what they're looking for without knowing that they're looking for it, because they'll give you their pain points. They'll give you their here's what's missing in my department right now, here's what's I need more from my team. But for some reason the antisocial social club seems to be more and more popular, especially with the pandemic of kids, I don't
Mhm.
want to present, I don't want to speak, I don't want to this. And it's like, okay, how are you planning on having a successful career if you're not speaking to anybody as a model? But yeah, like I also work with organizations if they want to embed proper AI and kind of HR to build a company culture that will last generations and that will kind of recognize the genius of the individual and how to treat them and engage them and meet them where they're at and create a culture where you don't need to spend a lot of money to take care of people. It's just a matter of being present and being empathetic and embedding that into your technology as well as your operations kind of thing.
Well, that sounds great. It sounds like you're one of the good guys working on improving the livelihoods of everyone. And I want to thank you for coming on the show and sharing your wisdom and the great work that you're doing.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been an honor and a pleasure.
Awesome. Well, thank you. You've been listening to the Time Compass Show with Bud Lizer. I hope our compass has shown you a better way forward. Now, if you've enjoyed this episode, I dare you not to like and not to subscribe. And I definitely double dare you not to share this episode with two of your friends who you know that would love this show. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, cheers.